Hello and welcome everybody to another wonderful episode of Coaching from the Heart. Our topic of discussion for the day is expanding love, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that with my good friend and co-host and colleague, Harold Feddersen.
Hi, Tyler.
Hey Harold, it's good to be back with you again today. I know we missed last week, but we're back on track. So before we go ahead and get started with the topic at hand, let me just go ahead and, as I always do, give people an opportunity, a place where they can get a hold of both myself, Tyler Thurman, and Harold, because we're both professional transformative coaches. And if you want to work with us in a deeper capacity than just this show, then feel free to reach out to either of us or just ask us questions about the show or offer us some show topics, because we're open to suggestions for that as well. So you can reach me at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com, and you can also find the link at the bottom of the show now. I'm going to try to be consistent about putting that there. And Harold, where can everybody reach you?
I can be found at www.haroldfeddersen.ca.
Fantastic. And I love your website. I've been there a couple times, so
Thank you.
So, Harold, you are going to talk to us a little bit about expanding love, because I have no idea what what this show's going to. I'm going to be honest here. Harold's got a fun idea in mind that I'm going to be learning about for the first time, just as much as you guys are, and so it'll be fun to be in that student role. So go ahead and take over the reins.
Take the soapbox.
That's right.
Okay, so it's one of my favorite areas to work in, and it's an inevitable area for anyone who does the kind of work that you and I do in our own lives, and obviously with the people we work with. So I tried not to think too much about this because I wanted to just bring it, as it comes, because I'm actually in the middle of a whole new expansion myself. So this is very fresh and alive and newly formed for me. So, so a simple way to sort of encapsulate this is there are two things. There's our capacity for love, which is what we're willing and able to sort of house. And then there's the expansion part of love, where we actually are willing to love things that we're not currently willing to love. So the expansion, and then the capacity, what we expand into is eventually what becomes part of our capacity. So in a simple sense, anything we're in resistance to is something that we're currently unwilling to love. So it could be just that simple. If I'm in resistance to it, then I'm not currently willing to love it. You can hear Feather.
Oh, the cat doesn't feel loved.
Yeah, he's feeling unloved. He is currently inside of my capacity. So recently, like I don't know, a month ago or so, I'm in conversation with a person, and I know I'm going to be in conversation with this person for quite some time. And this person is they've totally got all of my buttons just pressed to the max. And
I'm sure nobody can relate to that.
No one. This is just me on the planet. I'm sorry.
That's right.
And so I said to myself, I said, okay, so what's going on? And actually what I said was, what does this person need? Is the first thing I asked myself. And I said, this person needs to be loved. And right away, I could feel it in my whole body. I'm like, no way. I am not willing to love this person. That's just not, I just don't have it for this person. So as I do, you got to honor where you are. So
Sure.
I honored the truth of that for me. But truth has a funny way of working on you. So as for me anyway, and I don't know, for me, as soon as the truth is revealed, there's like I'm like a planet that's gravitationally getting pulled from that moment forward towards that truth. And I can fight it and resist it, or I can begin to give in. And so for this one, I began to give in. And so I like to explore, what is it about this person that I'm not willing to love? Um, so without going into any details on the person, um,
No
uh,
names.
no
No,
names.
no name calling on the show.
Yeah. um, there are just various aspects, various needs that they have, as this person has, that like in my brain or my mind, I'm like, well, they should be able to do that, or they should have that handled on their own. I shouldn't have to be the source for that, which is really, it's not a conversation about them at all. It's
Mm.
entirely a conversation about me. And I'm not willing to be the love that that person needs. So a month ago, it was capacity. I did not have the capacity for what that person needed. So there was the invitation to expand, like a bubble, to expand out, which is the really uncomfortable part. That's the uncomfortable part about love, and that's the reason um, we often don't do it, because I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago. We'd rather be right than, in this context we're talking, we'd rather be right than be loving.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how it was. So over the last, whatever it is, 4 or 5 weeks, I've taken this on pretty much daily, and I'm happy to report I'm in an expanded space. My capacity for this person has expanded, and there's
Wow.
still room to go. So I think with regards to expanding, it's usually easier for us to look outside, like at another person or event or circumstance or thing,
Yeah, sure. For sure. Or cat.
or cat, because that's easier. And then the other direction that we inevitably have to go is in. What is it? Yeah. Oh, they couldn't see that because yeah, they didn't see that. So the finger back at yourself. Um, which
Yeah.
is harder. It's harder for us to find, like, the question I like to ask is, what is it within myself, or what is it about me that I'm not willing to love or accept?
Hmm. Yeah.
And that becomes the invitation then for expansion.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful conversation to be in, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and thank you for sharing so openly about your personal experience.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I like what you came where you came to with it, or where you are in the process of really seeing that um, it ultimately does come back to us, right?
Yeah.
And that because it's excuse me, it's not. It's like they're the object of my unwillingness to love.
Hmm.
Um, but in each example, sure, it is going to be somewhat specific, but um, there's something. There's a connecting factor. The constant variable is us, right?
Hmm.
It's like And we look out. I love how you also pointed to the fact it's easier to look outside.
Yeah.
My experience is that's just because that's what we're used to doing. We're used to, we're trained to kind of fixate on our circumstances or the people that surround us and what they say and what they do, and then we judge. Or, like you were pointing to, we we're in the conversation of expanding love. Um,
And it's also easier to go outside because, like with this particular person, if there was some way that this person could not be in my life, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that door, please. So
right.
that's a sure, and that's because that's how we, our smaller self we would rather just the thing or the person just go away. We'd
Right.
rather not. But as I was talking to somebody about this situation, and I said, but to be totally honest, this person is a breakthrough for me. This person is a gift. The real deep sort of in my body resistance that I have to loving this person
Right.
um, is the gift. That is the gift of invitation, which in this particular case I have accepted and gone through the the all the emotional gambit and work that goes through with the entering into that expansion. So I think that's part of the reason why going outside of ourselves is easier too, because if there's something in our life where we're like, I just wish this wasn't in my life, it's like, oh well, there's your gift. There's your gift right there.
Right. And sometimes it can be simple enough to actually eliminate that thing from our lives or that
Hmm.
person. And therein lies missed opportunities, right?
Yeah,
Now, there's nothing wrong with that.
not at all.
Absolutely not.
We're not saying stay with the thing or
No,
keep doing the
yeah,
thing. Whatever.
especially in regards to some kind of abuse, right?
Hmm.
If that's going on, yeah, absolutely get out. But um, it also what will inevitably happen if you do that is it will show up in a different form elsewhere because the source has not left, which is
The
our
source
own
of
mind.
resistance.
The source of resisting love is still in our minds, and it will. There might be a temporary, reprieve, but it will resurface because that thing that you eliminated, you thought was the source. It's more of just a nice screen for us to project onto.
Yeah. To
Now
lay
again,
blame.
yeah, exactly. So to just um, have whatever's going on within us spill out into um, into the world that we, I sometimes I talk about the entire world as a giant projection screen, a screen that we can project our either the love and beauty within. Um, and actually, on that topic, um, that to me, that's not as much a projection as an extension or an expansion. To kind of confuse people with the word expansion. Since I sort of mean something different than what Harold does, I think. Um, but yeah, when it comes to our unwillingness to love, um, it's there for everybody, and uh, and I can tell you right now, my experience with it is the unwillingness to love isn't specific to that person necessarily, although it will look like it. But because it's there for everybody, that kind of suggests that it's something more than my in-laws or my shitty neighbor or or that person at work who drives me crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if I could just get rid of them, I'd be at peace and I'd be in love with life all the time, 100% of the time. If I could just fix that one thing. That's not how it works, right? No, I've never talked to anybody who that's been their experience. Oh, yeah, that person went away, and then my life was permanently much, much better.
Yeah.
Um, that's just not how it works, because that's not what's really going on. And I love how you said, Harold, it can be a gift. Now, that can sound very positive thinky, reframey, like, oh, see everything as a gift. And no, I believe, Harold, you're pointing to something deeper there, in the sense that it's almost like a gift from God, right? It's not just a gift, some random gift to us
Mm-hmm.
by an unknown sender, right? It's a gift that is continually being given to us, and there's constant opportunities to pick it up, unwrap it, look inside, embrace it, and grow spiritually, I think, to expand our capacity for love. um,
Yeah,
I
because
mean, yeah, go ahead.
that's what we're. Oh boy, I read this. So it was Groundhog Day on. Is it Tuesday?
It was recent.
Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Um, and Groundhog Day always makes me think of the movie Groundhog Day, which when I was in my mid-20s, I used to watch. I've probably seen that movie 30 times.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
used to
it's
love
a,
that movie.
it's a
It's classic.
beautiful sort of Buddhist tale of becoming yourself.
Yeah,
And anyway, and
yeah.
it's by Harold Ramis, and I read this quote about Harold Ramis about how the universe is in a constant state of becoming.
Hmm.
You know, and so I like to, we are the universe. Um, so we are in this constant state of becoming. We often get locked into this idea that we are a thing and we are somehow fixed in some point. But that's not true. When we sink into it, we're a constantly changing. I don't know this. I like the word becoming a
Yeah,
lot. So we're always in a state of becoming.
right.
So the gift is a powerful invitation to um, the becoming of the whole sort of the whole movement or expansion of the thing that we call ourselves, as an expression of the whole kit and caboodle.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and the gift, it looks a whole lot like a mirror, right?
Hmm.
Because you and I have talked a bit about, sort of the analogy of the world as a mirror before, but every instance will appear different, um, because the frame of the mirror is different,
Hmm.
right? The frame is my cousin Nancy, or it's my my barber Fred, or whoever it is in your life. And it's not just one person, right? But sometimes it will manifest most strongly in one person. And whether it's your significant other, your kids, somebody related to, somebody at work, um, but it's the same thing again and again and again. It's the same opportunity. It's the same. I don't know if it's the exact same lesson, but the heart of every lesson is the same, in the sense that they're all about love.
Mm-hmm.
They're all about deepening love. And my studies of A Course in Miracles have taught me that it's in fact, I think in the intro to A Course in Miracles, it says love is beyond what can be taught. But um, but removing the obstacles that we have placed in front of love, which is our nature, that is learnable. That is within our capacity to get our tiny minds around, I think. and to begin to let go of some of those. And so that's what I think you were talking about in the beginning, Harold, our unwillingness to love. What is up with my unwillingness to love this person? We think it's to do with reasons, right? We have a list. We have a
Mm-hmm.
list of reasons of why we can't love this person. Um, and I'm sure some of you out there have some really, really good reasons, right? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's also one of the valuable ways to enter this conversation is to not think of the person as like, I can't love that person.
Hmm.
It's actually is to break down what can I not love about that person, or
Hmm.
what is it about that person I'm unwilling to love? Because then you start to see that the person isn't like a whole, like one thing. The person is a sort of a complex diamond with many facets, and there are certain facets which you're willing or unwilling to be with.
Hmm.
Um, and you'll find with I find that there are certain facets. Once you see the facets, so let's just as an example, let's say they're really self-centered. There's an aspect to their way of being that's really self-centered, and you're like, I can't love that about them. Like, they're so self-centered. They think they're just their world revolves around them.
The cock
That,
of the walk.
yeah, the rooster out there. No,
Yeah.
so that's the thing right there. So that's where we go from the other to ourselves. That's the mirror now back, because the thing that you're unwilling to love in that other person is the thing that you're unwilling to love in yourself. We can only see. I'll give you this great quote. So there's this artist. He actually lives in this area. He's a tall tan Tlingit artist. His name is Dempsey Bob, and I run into him every once in a while, and I want to tell you the story of the history. But he's an amazing, amazing artist, and with most really amazing artists, he's also a philosopher, and he's a
Hmm.
culture carrier
Yeah.
for his
Sure.
culture. And we were talking one time in the coffee shop, and he said, the artist always has to be growing and always has to be learning, because if you don't, your art becomes stagnant and it starts to die inside. And he said, the artist can only see what they know. They can only see what they know. And I wrote it down. I ended up writing it on the wall
Hmm.
of my studio, because there's something really interesting about that. And just from an artist point of view, you think, okay, so you can only see what you know. So if you look at the sky and you only see blue, all you'll know is the blue. But if you can see the blue and the shades of indigo, or the shades of the deeper shades of blues that are happening in the sky, what you know is expanded, yeah?
Mm.
But I've spent years with this gift from him, and now I see how it's everything. You can only see in another what you know within yourself.
Right.
So for example, this is I'm kind of going sideways, but hopefully I'll wrap it around somehow back to what we're talking about. So I have loved certain people in ways that I know I'm coming from love when I'm interacting with them, but because they've never been loved in that way, they can't see it as love. They can only
Sure.
see it as whatever they know.
Right.
Um, so it's a really, really useful and valuable thing for us to become aware of what we know or don't know. Because you don't know what you don't know. So part of our expansion into expanding our love is finding those things in the other that we're unwilling to love, which then will reflect us back into ourselves. And what is it that I'm currently not seeing? What do I not know about myself that I'm not willing to love about myself? So
Mm.
that, because if I can love it within myself, if I can love my own self-centeredness and accept it, then all of a sudden it's an amazing thing, because as soon as you love it within yourself, all of a sudden you can be with it with the other person,
Right.
because there's that, yeah.
I really liked you said, "What am I not seeing?"
Hmm.
I think that's a really simple entry point into the conversation as well, because uh, you know it's not finger pointing at that point, right? It's saying,
Hmm.
okay, and there's a learning curve here, not necessarily an intellectual one, but there's a facility for beginning to, some people are in a place where they're like, nope, it's them. And it just looks so true, and they're so unwilling to explore it. And it's okay if you're in that place. Um, but you're
Love
not
that.
gonna, yeah, love that. It's gonna be hard, but
Love
go
your
for it.
rightness. Love your rightness until you're willing to soften into
Until you're ready to look at that.
the non-absoluteness of your rightness. Yeah.
Yeah, because, and one of the hints that you're a little, um, not wrong necessarily, but you're a little off track, is if you think it's about them, right? It's an inside out universe, right? Um, you know, it's to do with you. You can be certain. Now, that can very easily be twisted into, oh, what they did to me, I brought that on somehow. No, like, we're still responsible for our actions, and if they did something to you with their body, um, that was on them, right? But our experience of loving or not loving anybody is, um, it's to do with what's going on with us. Now, that's kind of, um, an advanced lesson, an advanced course, I guess you could say. But for me, it's the only course worth being on. Um, if you want to call it a course, I've only say that, I think, because I love A Course in Miracles. But there's actually a line uh, in the text of the course that says, well, I can't remember the exact quote, but it says it again and again, that we are either being love or we're calling for love.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
And that's true for everybody all the time, 100% of the time. And it's so simple because there's only ever one response that requires, right? That calls for. Because that to me, that speaks to our deeper nature. Now, because we're sort of free thinkers, or I think that's a bit of a misnomer, but we're thinkers. We can sort of put thought in between us and love, or we could kind of put a restrictor plate on it almost. Kind of like you were pointing to that. It's an unwillingness to love.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like an unwillingness to love at first. It looks like an imposed restriction, right? It looks like, based on something that happened, could be anything, based on something that happened, I can't love that person, or I can't love that person as fully or as deeply as I love other people, or I could love them. But that's a bit of an illusion, and it's one that's really worth exploring, because one of the things we miss out on when we're not loving is to state the obvious, right? Love feels amazing, right? There's connection and peace, and they're just words to describe an experience, but there's something beautiful there that we miss out on when we are unwilling to love. But it's not anybody's fault, because we don't even know that there's an unwillingness within us. And so that's why I love how you presented it, Harold, as this thing, this unpacking, this unpacking the gift.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I liked what you had said about that when you're wondering where you are in the spectrum of it. For me, the sort of the feedback is the rigidity of my own being. So when I really want to be right about something, I'm like, my heels are dug in, and I am like, I can feel a rigid firmness. Like, no, this is right. This is the way it is. This is the truth. And not in that moment, because in that moment I'm totally believing I'm right. But sometime after that, either minutes, hours, days, weeks, whatever, eventually,
months, years,
yeah, eventually, there's the realization of how rigid that was. And I know, and and I think we all know, the experience of when we're being love, there's such a soft sort of openness to it. Like there's an allowing where the other person can be however they want to be. And we just have no resistance to it. They don't have to fall into our rules of how they should behave or how they should speak or act or whatever. There's just an allowing. So that can be a really useful feedback tool too, is to just ask yourself, like, how rigid am I?
Yeah.
I
I like that, because really all you need is some awareness, some points of feedback, right, for ourselves. Like, what are what are some key things that we can notice when we're in it? Because when we're in that experience, it can be very easy not to the experience of rigidity, like you said, or unwillingness to love, which is another word for just judging. You know, in fact, I like what you said about rigidness, because that literally is like putting someone into a box, right? Or a category. It's very square and rigid, and you know, has shape and boundaries. Um, and that's what judgment is, right? And I totally lost my train of thoughts. On my little side tangent about boxes. But
About how because when
yeah,
we're
just
rigid,
looking for
we're in that
feedback.
space where the other person needs to be conforming to our ideas of how the world should be.
And I think it's worth shouting out to people, not literally, obviously, but shout out. Uh, it's worth pointing out that some people haven't experienced much of being a loving presence, uh, because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just biting my tongue. But see, I think actually everybody has experienced it tremendously. They just haven't brought the awareness to what they're. It's almost like they're being a loving presence in an unconscious way, or in a way that they're just they're blind to what they're doing. Because I think you and I run across this a lot, where we're acknowledging a client, and we can see how loving and generous and giving they're being, and then they'll say something like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, I didn't even see it like that before." So they're being it, absolutely, but they're just not aware that you can actually look at it in that light. I think that's really
Hmm.
common. So
Yeah, yeah, but so without the awareness, right? Then
because
they
they don't
wouldn't
see it as
know that
a
they
loving
wouldn't.
act.
Yeah, or they wouldn't know that experience. It's not as familiar to some people.
Hmm.
Um, that because I'm pointing to that deeper without the form, right? Because if sure, love manifests in a bajillion different ways in how we speak and act and behave, but that deeper experience of that you were kind of speaking to, of how it feels, of that lack of rigidity, that just however you are, that's okay. um, and sure, I might not agree with your behavior, but I also have a deeper understanding about that's not the truth of who you are. It's not the truth of who I am. um, and so if that looks and feels unfamiliar to you, um, that's okay, right? That it doesn't mean that that capacity is not there, because my experience is it is it's there for everybody, right? The ability to let go of our unwillingness to love, because sometimes you hear people say, right, I can't love this person, and they really, really mean it in the moment,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes they mean it in a lot of moments over a long span of time, right? But that doesn't mean in the next moment you couldn't let go of that unwillingness. Because I love that idea of unwillingness, because it speaks to us.
Hmm.
It speaks to, I'm unwilling. You can't have someone else be unwilling for you, right? That bit's on me. Now, it's not a blame thing. It's a responsibility. It's a freedom. Because if that capacity to let go of our unwillingness to love is within every single person, and an even deeper capacity to love is within every single person, um, then that means whatever looks like an obstacle to love outside you isn't actually. It's just a nice, convenient mirror that looks like something other than a mirror.
And I like that that you bring up, because when we say it, often we say, I can't. And if we just
I,
shift our language,
yeah,
everything shifts. Like, I am unwilling, because
I
that's what
won't.
like for whatever it was 5 weeks ago or whatever it was, I was like, I am not willing. I am unwilling. I wasn't saying I can't, because I can. I just choose not to. I choose to be in my rightness instead of being open. I choose to be rigid
Yeah.
instead of softening.
And that is a great, great place to be.
Hmm.
To be in the choice of it.
Yeah, because then eventually, in my experience anyway, eventually that gravitational pull of truth, it just pulls you, and there's nothing you can do. It's like, I have to give in to the truth of this. I have to find a way to
Yeah.
be in this
And
from
sure,
a place
we
of
could
love.
put up a good fight, right? Just
Hmm.
like, the tractor beam in Star Wars, but the little guy's just not getting away. You can't resist, and to me that's kind of there's a divinity there that's we've talked about before on this show, sort of a calling, a pull
Hmm.
towards home or truth or love. I think you could put in there as well.
Hmm.
um, and yeah, it's a great place to be in, even if you're actively resisting. If you know it's you that's resisting, you're almost there.
There's a lot of
you're
there's a lot of power in that, right?
you're almost there. It's because it's very different energetically than it. It had nothing to do with me. It's got it's got nothing to do with me. And some people are there, and like I said, that's okay too. You're on your own. You're like, I think you were speaking to the spectrum, if you will.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you don't have to go
you're
on.
exactly where you're at. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
and you don't have to go and find the most difficult thing either.
No,
You know,
the lessons
like,
in your life will be perfect for you where you're at.
yeah, pick
Yeah.
something, pick something smaller and practice. The going from the rigid to the softer.
Right. It's funny you say that because in A Course in Miracles, they talk about the example of Jesus on the cross, right? Like, if you if you contemplate that as a lesson for love, uh, that would be on the advanced side of the lessons, right? To love somebody while being nailed to a cross, um, you don't need to go do that, right? Some people sort of misunderstand that I got to go find the most awful thing I can think of, abuse or violence or and subject myself to that so that I can learn more quickly. No, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Whatever's presenting in your life, that is every bit as good a mirror as, the extreme examples, right? Which, those people, I'm hoping they were in a place where that was what they needed. That was their advanced lesson. I don't know if that's true, but 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 wherever you're at is just perfect. That's one of the things I love about some of the lessons in A Course in Miracles. It speaks to that wherever you're at, whatever's going on in your life, whatever, because everyone's got struggles, everyone's got challenges. You can learn your lessons of love, or I think the course actually talks about it as forgiveness, but it's the same basic thing, right? Your 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 forgiveness lessons, your letting go lessons, your loosening judgment lessons. It's all to do with love. It's all to do with expanding love. Um, Even the smallest, mildest irritation, right? Yeah, you got something there, Harold.
Yeah, I was thinking about a really useful practice also, because our conversation so far has been mostly about what are we unwilling to love, and then are we willing to expand our current capacity to engulf that as well? Yeah. Um, and I think it's really valuable for us to be able to look at our lives through a lens of love and see, where are you currently very comfortable being love.
Hmm.
A lot of you hear about people. You have dogs. People who have dogs or cats. Uh, um, most likely you have a capacity already and a way of being love for your pet friend, um, or people in your life, or things, or strangers, or I always I always have so much fun when I go through the cash register anywhere, because it's such a great place to just be a loving presence as you pass through someone's day, and be the opportunity to bring some love and joy and laughter into that experience. Um, so I think it's really valuable for us to just take pause, at the end of your day or whatever, and look back and say, where was I a loving presence? So you start to actually get the facility of seeing how you are actually already being a loving presence in the world, for others, and ultimately, how was I being a loving presence for myself? And sometimes, I think we kind of touched on this. Sometimes being a loving presence for yourself is saying no to another. You know, it's not always
Yeah.
embrace whatever comes. Sometimes being a loving presence is being willing to say, no, actually, it's
And I think that's an important distinction to make about love, is to not get it confused with the form and the content, right? Because there's love, and then there's the expression of love in form. And so we have this idea that love always looks a certain way, and we might not have encountered somebody saying no to us as an expression of love, or us saying no, or you know, that kind of thing, uh, from a place of love. That might look strange because it's not the most common thing in our society, right? That's not something we're taught can go together. I can't be loving and stern. I can't be loving and um, deny this person what they're asking for. And in point of fact, you can. It, it just it's not. You just don't want to get too caught up on how it looks necessarily. Um, Coming from us, at least, because who knows what's going on for other people.
mm-hmm.
We can guess if they're being loving. We can guess if they're. Usually, we kind of know intuitively. Um, but somebody could offer you a bunch of money from a place of guilt and fear, right? It's you know giving. We think, oh, giving is loving. Well, not necessarily coming from a loving place. And so that's just I think it's a pretty common distinction, but it's one worth revisiting. That just you know love looks like a lot of different things, because it's deeper than that.
And we'll only be able to see the love that we currently know.
Yeah.
So someone might be loving us, but we
Sure.
don't see it as love because it's not currently in our framework. One of
Right.
my it was almost mandatory reading for clients with me was Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages.
Mm-hmm.
Revolutionary book, really, really useful. So, so in there, he's got these 5 types of expressions of love. And if yours, so one of them is giving gifts, and one is words of affirmation. Let's just take those 2. So if, let's say, Tyler, let's say your love language is giving gifts, so you send me gifts all the time. If my way of feeling love is actually words of affirmation, then even though you're pouring all this love from you to me, I don't feel loved at all.
Mm.
And maybe I will say all these great things about you as an amazing man and beautiful human, and you won't feel loved, because for you, feeling love, this is super simplified, but you feel loved with gifts. So it's also really interesting to know that how we express love is not necessarily how other people receive it. So
Yeah.
part of our role is to find ways to love another in a language that they know. So with regards to Dempsey Bob saying to love them so they can see it in a way that they know.
Mm.
And that's been a really interesting area of exploration as well, because I don't necessarily feel that I'm being loving in the sense that I would feel loved, but the other person feels loved because it's coming to them in a language that they speak or in a way that they receive.
Sure. Which I think all of that is really pointing towards a deeper truth, right? Which is love goes beyond the form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, like you said, if you don't know that, a great place to start is, become bilingual. But really, there's millions of languages because it's something behind the language, and so yeah, I think that's really important to recognize. And if you want to, notice, oh, that person really loves this or loves that. Um, Honoring them in that way is great. But don't think you need to do that to be loving necessarily. What do you
Be a
think,
loving.
Harold?
I think we're almost there again. This went quick.
Well, you miss a week. We
Yeah.
have lots of stuff to try to squeeze in. We have a spiritual backlog of content. Pipeline.
I'm backed up with love.
Yeah, let's not go there.
No.
You guys don't know Harold and I behind the scenes, but anyways, so I think um, that's a really it's been a really fun conversation because it's we did another show on love that was a bit different. It is this is more kind of it always seems to be in relation to other people, but it seemed like we kind of pointing towards more than romantic love, right? Just our deeper experience of loving or not loving, anything and everything around us. And I always go back to, if you can even see just a sliver of the truth that I spoke to earlier, that everyone's either being love or calling for love. It's really simple. And there's only one appropriate response. Now, that's not to make people wrong for not loving, because sometimes we're going to struggle because we've got a lot of ideas about that person's behavior or what they said, or our history with them, just all sorts of stuff. We'll have a backlog of excuses. But the deeper truth is you could, in any moment, let go of your unwillingness to love, and in the process expand your own experience of that deeper love that is available in any moment. So with that, Harold, you got any parting shots for me today?
So weird.
For us, for our audience.
Yeah, it takes courage. It takes courage to expand, because we have to give up something that we currently hold dear to us.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
So,
self-righteousness.
Yeah, righteous indignation.
Yeah, that's right.
So, the invitation is to be courageous. The invitation is there, and there's a real beauty in sensing our own expansion, our own capacity growing larger. It creates a deeper connection with others, and obviously with ourselves. And it sort of moves this sort of thicker humanness. It moves us forward in a direction that we really need to be moving towards as a whole society. So,
yeah,
except go for it. Be courageous.
yeah.
Let go of your stuff.
And remember, you get to be right, or you get to be in love with life. You get to choose. But it's recognizing at some level that you're probably not aware of right now, there's a choice. And it's one worth being in, worth knowing about, even if you're choosing being right in the moment, right? That's okay.
Yeah, honor the truth of that.
Honor the truth. Honor that cherishing being right. And eventually everyone comes to see what we are giving up to be right, and to be, judgmental in that way, right? So with that, I think that's a great place to kind of sign off, Harold. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Coaching from the Heart. And as always, if you enjoyed this conversation, you can find us most Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And you can find me at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com. And Harold?
You can find me at www.haroldfeddersen.ca.
And again, Harold and I walk this path with our clients. And so if you want to walk it with us, feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to have a consultation with you about that. And so again, until next time, and with all the love in our hearts, we'll see you next time.